Hi, I'm Will with Antique Radio Archaeology. Today we're going to do a restoration on a Chelsea Radio Company table-mounted variable condenser. This is going to be the first restoration in a series that I'm doing that's going to highlight a culmination of about 10 years of research that I've done on Chelsea Radio Company and other radio manufacturers in the Chelsea, Massachusetts area during the 1920s. If you like what you see in this video, please hit like. And if you'd like to learn more about the radio manufacturing craze during the 1920s in Chelsea, Massachusetts, by all means hit subscribe. This came out in about 1919, and it was one of the first items that Chelsea Radio Company produced. And you can see it this is a radio equipment and supply catalog. And there you have it, right there. This is one of those variable condensers, and that is the Chelsea number 1, and I believe that's what this one is. It's the number 1, and it's an 0.0011 microfarad variable capacitor. Now, these were produced throughout the early 20s, and they actually did really well. Now, they're very similar to the Murdoch ones, which I thought was kind of interesting. And later on, I found out that one of the founding members of Chelsea Radio, one of the partners, was actually a superintendent over at Murdoch. So it's kind of obvious that there was probably a little bit of copying going on back in the day. And they were only a few miles from each other in Chelsea, Massachusetts, both companies. Now I can see right away, one of the problems that these things always have is right here. That's an old celluloid type material, and it does get yellow with age. It does warp, it shrinks, and it gets pretty ugly. But what I'm going to do during the restoration is we're going to actually replace that, and I'll get into how I'm going to do that. The other thing I need to do, I got to do some cleaning up on it. Now, I don't know if you can hear this. If you listen real close. That's the rubbing of the plates. It's not supposed to do that, but they all do. With age, with getting knocked around, things like that. This is actually in a lot better shape than I thought it was. When I saw the one in the picture, it was, like I said, it was in a group of radio parts. This was really kind of buried in all that, so I had no idea what the condition was, and now that I see it, I'm actually very shocked. For what I paid for this entire lot, I probably could have gotten this alone. So anyway, that's what we've got, and what we're going to do now is we're going to restore this thing to like new condition. I did check. This is actually the model number 1, which is a 0.0011 microfarad variometer, or variable condenser, I should say. This one here is a 0.0068 variable condenser, and this one here is a 0.0068 with a little 3-plate vernier at the bottom of it. So what they actually did, what Chelsea did, was take their regular panel mounted capacitors and put them in what they called a mounted configuration, which is what this is. So with these mounted variable condensers, what they were used for obviously was the crystal radios. They'd use it with a loose coupler to develop the variable tank circuit that was used to tune in the RF signal in order to be heard, or to be detected, I should say, which happens before you can actually hear it. Now, interestingly, these three are all in various stages of conditions. This one here, that one definitely needs some adjusting. This one definitely needs some adjusting. This one actually does not. It's in pretty good shape. And the vernier does. But what we're going to do is we're going to totally disassemble these, and I'm only going to do one for the sake of this video. But we're going to totally disassemble one. I'm going to replace, or we're going to clean up all the parts. I'm going to reassemble it, and then we're going to replace the celluloid, which is this part right here. And as you can see, now this one is actually, they're supposed to be very pliable, and this one is sort of pliable, and this new one is not very pliable, but it is somewhat pliable. This one here, this one's not. This one's just dried out and in really bad shape. So yeah, it's gonna hit. So we're going to replace that. But this is what it looks like on the inside with the vernier. And as a matter of fact, I think that is probably going to be the more difficult one. But because this is the one that I've got in the mail, this is the one that I'm going to go ahead and restore. So these we can go ahead and put away. First of all, I'm going to use flathead screwdrivers for the disassembly. Now, one thing I would suggest is getting a box to throw the little small parts in. Another thing is to take plenty of photographs before, during, and throughout this whole process. Now, because I'm recording this, obviously, I'll have that record to go on. But I also have done a couple of these, so I already know what parts go where, and I do have old pictures, so I can always reference those when reassembling. But these things do have a lot of parts. It doesn't seem like it, but there are quite a few. So we're going to start off by removing the celluloid cover. Now this one has 2 screws. Some of them have 1. Can see the inside, a little bit of corrosion there, not much, but go ahead and remove the bottom plate. So these are our parts. And I'm going to clean all of these up with a little Dremel, a little bit of elbow grease, and we're going to get this thing looking like brand new. These are nothing, and those are our screws. What do I do for this celluloid thing here? I went to a craft store and I found one of these. Now, obviously we're going to sacrifice this pretty little pail, but this is only about 10 bucks. And the thing is, I can do several, or at least 2 to 3 at the most, probably. But I can use this to replace this. And it's thin enough that I won't have to worry about it fitting in these slots or grooves in the base. So that's the plan, and let's get started. This is a metal polish, and it can be used on aluminum. and stainless and brass and a few other things, but it works great on bakelite. As far as once this is cleaned up, it will actually polish the bakelite. So I'm going to be using that. Windex, obviously, or any kind of window cleaner. Start with the bakelite. Just real quick. Run off it, see where it never isn't too bad. It's really surprisingly good shape. Let's see what worse. Really take here. I don't get that. Something under nice. Okay. I'm not too worried about the paint at all because if by chance it comes out, we just use a paint to replace itself. So what I'm going to do is small amounts, small areas. A piece of metal stuff in there. Okay, do that a little bit on top. There's actually something there. So right there. So then we'll use this. Okay. So as you can see, it's starting to look up. Definitely starting to look a little better. And that I will polish up in a little bit, but that's the bakelite portion. Okay, so all the parts have been cleaned up, all the small parts, and the bakelite has been cleaned up. So now let's move on to removing the Chelsea tag from the celluloid material. That's going to be our next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try and cut the little ends off the rivets, which they do have a little washer there, but hopefully this will get it. Alright, that didn't take much effort on that side. This one's being a little more difficult. Yeah, there we go. For the next step, I'm going to take the plate that I pulled off the celluloid and I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes to fit the screws that I picked up. Now these are 440 1/4" with a washer and nut, and because it's 440 I'm going to need a 7/64 bit. Now this is brass, so it's very soft, so I just need to be very careful. Now I'm kind of close to the edge there, and I definitely don't want to open that up, so let me go ahead and do that real quick. There's two. Check that. There we go. There we go. Okay, so that's done. We can put that away. Now I did want to mention that I did clean it up a little bit before I did that, so this thing's ready to go. It really didn't need a lot of cleanup. I just put some Brasso on the back really to clean that part up. So alright, all my parts are ready to go with the exception of the capacitor itself. This here has got some corrosion in it, I can see it. There's not a lot you really can or want to do. A lot of what's happening here is it's coated, and the coating is kind of peeling up. So I just kind of want to loosen that up, and what I'm going to do is use some crocus cloth to do that. So let me go ahead and get some, and I'll be right back. Well, I couldn't find any crocus cloth, but I did find some 320 grit sandpaper, and the crocus cloth I had was actually too thick to fit between the veins here, so I'm just going to go ahead and just lightly sand between these veins, get that loose material that's in there off of it. So, alright, we're now ready to put this thing back together. I've arranged these things kind of in a way that I can remember where the screws go. First of all, this here is going to go on to the celluloid or the plastic that I'm going to replace, which we're going to do after we assemble it. So I can get rid of this, I can get rid of the two screws that attach to the back of the capacitor, and I can get rid of those that are going to attach to the plastic. Let's go ahead and slide this into here with this top plate above, and the longer ends are going to be upward. As you can see, there's a short side and a long side. The long goes up. So, to begin with, I need to get this little spike here goes back on there. Okay. There is a set screw that goes in here. Go ahead and put that in there. Not all the way, just enough to get in there. And we can go ahead and start putting our base together here. Now there's these little connection plates that hook between the terminal and the capacitor. One's going to hook to here, the other's going to hook to there. Now you got to watch how you do this because you don't want to block that groove. So make sure that when you get it in here. And from what I can see, none of the plates are touching. And it sounds like none of the plates are touching. Okay. So that's it. We are fully assembled. I'll go ahead and put my little terminals back on. Okay, so I went ahead and trimmed it up. So now what we got to do, start here where those capacitors start, kind of overlap that a little bit, and just squeeze that in there and wrap that all the way around. And it should just fall right into place if it's trimmed right, which it seems to be. Okay, now at this point I still have a little bit of overlap there. I need a little bit of overlap on this side. So let me go ahead and mark that. Put it right about, give it a little more. Right there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and trim that up. And that should take care of my sizing. Go ahead and get this thing back in here. Alright, now I have this little gadget right here. I'm going to go ahead and poke a hole all the way through the center where both of those need to be. Okay. I'm just using a drill bit, and to be honest with you, I'm not using a drill. I'm just being very careful here. Alright, let's see if we can get this to line up. Ah, yes. They do line up. Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to have to trim it a little bit down at the bottom there, but that's no biggie. Okay, now, with that being the way it is, we got those screws in the back. Now what I need to do is I need to put this centered on that bar. And centered up and down. Poke my little holes. And we're going to go ahead and take this apart again. there you have it. So this is the final product, and I did notice that I made a slight mistake. If you look, you can see that at 0 I actually have maximum capacitance. At 100 I have minimum capacitance. So the pointer's in the wrong direction. Easy fix. Just unscrew the knob at the top. Move the pointer. Put the knob back in. And there you have it. A fully restored Chelsea Radio Company table mounted variable capacitor. So that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I did making it. In the meantime, happy restorations, and we'll see you next video.